Hello and welcome to a new analysis of the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. The conflict has been going on for over a year with no signs of an abatement of the war, let alone an end to it. Everyone wants an end to it. In this video, we will look into the real causes that shaped this conflict and the main players. We must go, however, into some historical background, in particular the religious angle. We cannot undermine the religious aspect when we are discussing something of a deep and significant import in the European and American worlds. We are chiefly concerned with history and how history has shaped the major contours of this conflict. How must our contribution be towards the resolution of this conflict? We, the common people, must be on the right side of history. Only then will we be shapers of history. We must also look into yet another facet, something called similitude. Like, we want to draw certain conclusions on the basis of certain perceived similarities. Hence, let us, without much ado, dive right into the subject. Now, we know that the Russia-Ukrainian crisis is a man-made disaster. Now, since we are covering the conflict using the religious dimension, we note that even in Christian circles, Russia is viewed in a negative light, with prophecy teachers, one class of people, citing prophetic verses falsely to paint Russia as an enemy. Now, there are principally two countries that stand out in this conflict. The first is the United States, and the second is Russia. These two countries have one property in common. I want to remind viewers that we are viewing the issue through the Judeo-Christian lens and discussing the matter from a Judeo-Christian perspective. But what is Judeo-Christianity? I'll answer that in a short while. However, since time is short, we want to essentially concentrate on what is most relevant. And a short preview of relevant history is essential. Speaking with respect to Christianity, we won't go much into that. However, just a few points. Christianity as a religion had its beginning at the start of the first century, around 30 AD, in Jerusalem, in the land of Israel. Christianity rapidly spread into Europe and took hold of large parts of the European continent over successive centuries. From the 11th century onwards, there were two branches of Christianity. In Western Europe, we had Catholic Christianity with its headquarters in Rome. In Eastern Europe, we had Orthodox Christianity, which was centered in Constantinople. Now, fast forward to the 1500s. Now, there was a religious stirring in Western Europe known as the Reformation. Large sections of the Christian population in Western Europe separated from the Catholic Church. They were called Protestants and were organized into denominations. From then on, the Catholic Church began to be known as the Roman Catholic Church. I'm covering all these aspects and these topics in more detail in my 8-part video series on Judeo-Christianity. They are named Part 1, Part 2, and so on. It's basically church history viewed in a practical light in a timeline from 30 AD right down to the present. The topic of Judeo-Christianity, however, appears in the 7th video. An introductory video as well as the first 2 parts are already out there on YouTube. The links are given below. Also, please visit our website, Judeo-Christianity.com, for details about our ministry and about our work. Now, back to where we left off. We just referred to the Reformation movement and the emergence of a body of Christians who identified as Protestant Christians. Now, we want to call the Reformation as a Judeo-Christian event. Explanations are in the video series. Owing to religious persecution in Europe and with a desire to be able to freely practice their religion, most Protestant Christians fled Europe and settled in a new and practically uninhabited country, which later became the United States of America. We describe these Protestant Christians as Judeo-Christians. We all know that the United States is the bastion of Protestant Christianity. By that definition, the United States is a Judeo-Christian country. Over the centuries, the United States has grown to become an economic and technological powerhouse and is today the most powerful country in the world. The United States has close military ties with countries in Western Europe and is the leader of the military alliance known as the NATO. You know, this is a short for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. As we noted above, from the 11th century onwards, Christianity branched into 2 streams. The Western stream, known as Catholic Christianity, and the Eastern stream, known as Orthodox Christianity. Both streams went their separate ways and had to grapple with the challenges which were unique to the environments in which they were operating. The opportunities and the challenges were widely different on both sides. Furthermore, there were religious differences between the 2 streams, and these differences are known as theological differences. Hence, a certain sense of alienation gradually crept in between these 2 streams of Christianity. Western Christianity was a monolithic bloc centered in Rome and governed by the papacy. The Pope was the chief ecclesiastical authority in Western Christianity prior to the Reformation. Now, up to now, we were looking at Western Christianity and the developments in that stream. The Protestant Reformation event was a Western Christian phenomenon. Let us now turn our attention to Eastern Christianity. Eastern Christianity lags Western Christianity by 500 years. Now, Western Christianity was established by around 500 AD, whereas Eastern Christianity, as a separate stream within Christianity, became clearly manifest only after the Great Schism in 1054 AD. Eastern Christianity, which is better known as Orthodox Christianity, was centered in Constantinople and was the dominant form of Christianity in Eastern Europe. In contrast to Western Christianity, which was a monolithic bloc, Eastern Christianity took the decentralization route from 1054 AD. We are now discussing the history. Orthodox Christianity is organized into patriarchates. A patriarchate essentially designates the office and the geographical jurisdiction of an ecclesiastical patriarch. Currently, there are 9 major patriarchates within Orthodox Christianity. Each patriarchate is headed by a metropolitan. The metropolitan of Constantinople is regarded as a first among equals in the Orthodox hierarchy. Constantinople was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, which is also popularly known as the Byzantine Empire. In 1453 AD, tragedy struck Constantinople. After several attempts, Constantinople was finally overcome and conquered by the Ottoman Empire. Since the religion followed by the Ottomans was adverse to Christianity, the name of the city was changed, and many followers of the adverse religion began to settle in what was once known as Constantinople. Needless to say, the character of the city underwent a profound change. With the loss of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire came to an end. The fall of Constantinople was a serious blow to Orthodox Christianity as well. The metropolitan, however, remained and continued, even today, continues to be regarded as the metropolitan of Constantinople. However, remarkably, certain curious things happened. The religion of Russia-Ukraine had been Christianized in the 8th century, and the people there had embraced Orthodox Christianity. Orthodoxy grew strongly in Russia, and Russia became a stronghold of Orthodox Christianity. From the start, Russia had maintained close cultural, political, and family ties with the Byzantine Empire. In 1589 AD, the Patriarchate of Constantinople granted something known as autocephalous status to Moscow. Now, Moscow grew to become the capital of the largest Orthodox Christian polity. Politically, Russia was powerful, and Orthodox Christianity began to flourish in the region of Russia-Ukraine. Moscow began to be regarded as the cultural and religious heir of Constantinople. Orthodox Christianity continues to be followed in many Eastern European countries like Bulgaria, Romania, Greece, and the latest breakaway countries. However, the Russian Orthodox Church holds primacy. As noted above, there are 9 major patriarchates that are autocephalous, which is another term for self-governing. Curiously, however, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church was not granted autocephaly, but remained under the Patriarchate of Moscow. Hence, from the religious orientation point of view, Russia and Ukraine are one nation. We recall that there was a movement called the Reformation in Western Christianity. Significantly, there was no corresponding or matching event like the Reformation in Eastern Christianity. It was the Reformation in Western Europe that gave rise to the strong and prosperous United States of America that we know. Protestant Christianity is the religious standard bearer in the West. The United States, therefore, is the leader of Western Europe, not only militarily and politically, but also religiously. We must not forget that Eastern Christianity lags Western Christianity by 500 years. When did the Reformation happen in Western Christianity? Around 1500 AD. Hence, a movement like the Reformation is on the cards in Eastern Christianity. Above, we saw that Russia inherited the status of torchbearer for Orthodox Christianity after the fall of Constantinople. We also noted that religiously, Russia and Ukraine are one nation. They draw their sustenance from the same patriarchate and the same Orthodox Church. Thus, they are drinking from the same well. This is the real state of affairs we are witness to. Now, terms like God's will and mention of the word God are unwelcome in today's modern world. We therefore circumvent this constraint by using the terms providential design and providence. Using this terminology, we can say that this state of affairs is by providential design. Russia and Ukraine share a common religious and political history and have been united for over 10 centuries. Centuries of brotherhood cannot be dissolved in a single day or within a small fraction of time. We also saw above earlier that Russia has now inherited the mantle of religious heir to Constantinople. Russia is therefore the religious standard bearer for Eastern Christianity. Like the United States in the West, Russia is the military and political superpower in the East. Hence, similitude number 1. Russia is to Eastern Christianity what the United States is to Western Christianity. Then, something very important now. For a robust and healthy Christianity to exist, both forms of Christianity, namely Catholic and Orthodox, are vital. Whatever has happened over the past 2000 years, which is historically verifiable, is according to providential design. Eastern and Western Christianity are not competing but complementary streams. This is called the Council of Providence. And that is the reason I'm saying that we should be on the right side of history. Now, it is through providential design that the United States of America and Russia became superpowers in the West and the East, respectively. Now, fast forward to the present. We saw that the US and Russia are the two superpowers by providential design. However, this is not to the liking of the powers that be. Evidently, the ones who appear to be making the decisions are not the ones that are actually making the decisions. Evidence of this fact are the often contradictory blow hot, blow cold statements being aired by the NATO, the EU, and the individual NATO countries. One trend is abundantly clear: escalation is certain, but with circumspection and a lot of narrative build-up. In one sense, the European world is being prepared for war, slowly but steadily, in fits and starts. That there is murderous intent against Russia is glaringly evident. There are multiple players, each with their own vested interests. Russia is in the way of these vested interests. The very existence of Russia is abhorrent to these powers that be. The only outcome that will satisfy these self-appointed stakeholders is the complete obliteration of Russia as a nation and as a people. None of the players, however, have been visible, though recently there's been a small visibility account. Their interests, however, though disparate, seem to be converging. What is striking is that these powers that be are now slowly coming out in plain sight. When did they become conspicuous? With the outburst of this war. Now, who are these powers that be? We must make a small, draw some attention to that. Firstly is the globalist elite, something like an international conglomerate. There are quite a few of them, and each of them obviously expect a share in the pie. And then, secondly, there are behind the scenes players in all of the NATO countries. And three, the ruling elites in each of these countries. There are unseen activists who liaison between the global elite and the ruling elite in each country. There is an underlying malicious intent against Russia. No thoughtful person, and thankfully there are many of them, and no thoughtful person is oblivious of this fact. The scheme started years ago. The plan was to isolate Russia and Europe. The first step was to absorb the Warsaw countries minus Russia into the NATO orbit. However, Ukraine was in the way. There was a special relationship that existed between Russia and Ukraine when Yanukovych was president. Yanukovych was dispatched through the cleverly staged Maidan event. Then came Petro Poroshenko, and he was a centrist, and he was not sufficiently pliable. He too was dispatched. They finally got their man in Zelensky, who was least bothered about the welfare of the Ukrainian people. Furthermore, he was strongly anti-Russian and shared their vision of a destroyed Russia. This is exactly the scenario they were seeking. NATO weapons are on Ukrainian soil. Ukrainians are being trained for war. Ukraine is depleted. Everything is going according to plan. What they were looking for was a narrative that will stick. I have covered an important angle to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Prior to resolving a conflict, all the facts related to the issue should be viewed from all perspectives. We will then be able to respond appropriately and take a just decision. We have to be guided by history as well, and again we must be on the right side of history. On the basis of everything we have discussed, certain important questions have come to the fore. Is Russia really an evil country? Is Putin really a demon? Is Russia friend or foe? Our response must be calibrated according to the tenor of these questions. Another element is the general antipathy for Russia that the NATO countries share. It has a religious dimension that is also a consequence of the East-West divide. In the next video, which will be part 2, we will be discussing this aspect as well as another similitude number 2. In part 3, we will discuss the tale of two ideologies, leftism and Nazism, which are at the root of this crisis. Then there is also the important issue of the inconsistency of alliances which both Russia and the United States are guilty of. In the final part, part 4, we will cover the all-important question of the much-expected world war and reset of alliances. To set the record straight, the Russia-Ukrainian crisis will not climax into a world war involving the use of nuclear weapons. That is at least 14 years away. The Russia-Ukrainian crisis actually represents the fulmination of the Cold War in order that it may translate into a physical, real, hot-blooded war. But this war is actually the culmination of the Cold War, the last dying gasps of the Cold War. At the end of all this, hopefully, everyone would have learned valuable lessons. Speaking of myself, my name is John and I am from India. I am also an Anglican, that is, the church to which I belong is an offshoot of the Church of England. Hence, I am from the Protestant Christian community and have roots in Western Christianity. Thanks for watching. Do like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I'll be back with the other three parts. Those who are inclined can also visit our website, Judeo-Christianity.com.